Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Another one of those leftist ideas, sounds great in theory. In practice, well, let's say impractical. There's a lot of these concepts. One of them's the minimum wage. Leftists love to say, pay a living wage. We need to be paid a living wage. They argue the minimum wage should be increased across the board. Everyone should be making X amount of dollars. It sounds great, it sounds fantastic, but nobody seems to think about the downstream effect. Nobody seems to think that if all of a sudden every business is forced to pay higher wages, that, well, everything just got that much more expensive. And then that cost is sent down to the consumer, otherwise known as, I guess we could call it inflation. And that extra purchasing power that you were looking for by arbitrarily increasing wages, well, it simply evaporates. Another one of these concepts is collective bargaining. Leftists love unions. Well, they at least have to pretend that they love unions. And again, the marketing, the headlines, it makes for a good story, it makes for good news. And of course, people end up feeling like they're part of something bigger than themselves, standing with the little guy against these big, evil, terrible corporations. But again, the downstream effects, the actual impacts, the negative impacts, people's lives end up being destroyed. Nobody tells that story. Nobody tells the bad. It's simply marketed as a must-be adhered to stance on the left. You cannot question unions. You must support all strikes, and that's why the left is losing their minds after Bill Maher's decision to pull out of the Writers Guild strike. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright friends, here's the headline from NBC News. Real time with Bill Maher returning to HBO without writers amid WGA strike. Bill Maher's political talk show will return to the HBO lineup for new episodes without writers amid the dual Hollywood strike, he said on social media Wednesday night. Here's the message that he wrote on Twitter. Real time is coming back. Unfortunately, without writers or writing. It's been 5 months and it's time to bring people back to work. The writers have important issues that I sympathize with and hope they are addressed to their satisfaction, but they are not the only people with issues, problems, and concerns. Despite some assistance from me, much of the staff is struggling mightily. We all were hopeful that this would come to an end after Labor Day, but that day has come and gone, and there still seems to be nothing happening. I love my writers, I am one of them, but I'm not prepared to lose an entire year and see so many below-the-line people suffer so much. I will honor the spirit of the strike by not doing a monologue, desk piece, new rules, or editorial, the written pieces that I am so proud of on Real Time, and I'll say it upfront to the audience that the show that I will be doing without my writers will not be as good as our normal show, full stop, but the heart of the show is an off-the-cuff panel discussion that aims to cut through the BS and predictable partisanship, and that will continue. The show will not disappoint. And that right there is kind of the problem with unions. In Hollywood, you have a select few people who are privileged enough to have union representation, to have, that collective bargaining chip that they could play to go after the big corporations. Yeah, but that doesn't include everybody. That's the frustrating part. If you have one union, then theoretically, everybody needs to be unionized at that point. And obviously that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. The fancy writers get to say, we're not going to work, we're on strike until we get what we want. And then all the people who are providing services to these sets, it's a huge industry, which I used to work in, by the way. You got people doing craft services, cleaning sets, building sets, deliveries, equipment, filming, production, visual effects. There's so many layers to this industry. We could refer to it as the pipeline. There's so many people that are part of that pipeline who are getting royally screwed. The Los Angeles writers don't want to work, and so they're putting everything on halt for more than 5 months, I think, at this point. And then everybody else, what are they expected to do? Go on government assistance? Beg on the street? Clean people's cars? And try to scrape whatever they can get by to be able to provide for themselves and maybe even a family? It's obviously ridiculous. It's obviously unsustainable, but most importantly, it's selfish. But that, of course, is not a conversation that you're allowed to have in Hollywood. Several months ago, an actor by the name of Stephen Amell said this during a convention open panel discussion.
I support my union. I do, and I stand with them. I do not support striking. I don't. I think that it is a reductive negotiating tactic. And I find the entire thing incredibly frustrating. And I think that the thinking as it pertains to shows like the show that I'm on that premiered last night, I think that is... Woo! I think that it is, I think it's myopic. and I stand with my union.
And well, what do you think happened? The Hollywood cancel train came right for him. The groveling, insincere apology followed.
Guys, taking the time, I'm going to take a little bit of a quiet moment and try to unplug a little bit. But I'll tell you what, I will do anything within my power, and if that's being the first one across the line a little bit, no pun intended, if that is going to help this process, then I'm more than happy to take those slings and arrows. I don't consider myself to be a martyr, and frankly, I would have preferred that these comments never became public, but they did, and here we are, and hopefully it can just lead to a broader discussion, and we can get people back to work.
Stephen, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you both very much. Appreciate you.
And then a couple days later, Stephen Amell was on the streets supporting the strike. The whole concept of unions, again, it's something that you kind of want to feel sympathetic towards in a couple ways. You want it to make sense. You obviously want people to do well. You want people to have some sort of ability to negotiate terms as an employee, but often it goes way too far. It becomes this big bureaucratic mess, and essentially it turns into these massive groups of elite political privilege. You know, the teachers' unions, they have that privilege. Regular people, not so much. The writers, they have that privilege. They make enough money to be able to take 5 months off work to strike for something that's going to benefit them in the long run, but the working class people who make the economy work get shafted. It's kind of like the whole pandemic thing, you know? It's very easy to say, well, oh, we gotta do this to protect people. We just gotta do our part. It's very easy to say that. When you're writing that from your MacBook, working from home, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, living in a fancy metropolis. But it's another situation entirely if your business is being shut down, or if you can't go to work anymore and provide for your family because of the policy decisions being made. It's the same thing with unions. It's very easy to say, I support unions, when you're representing the more elite class that's benefiting from those unions, when you're a spokesperson or you're representing a group that benefits from it. But obviously, it's very different if you're occupying, let's say, a different position, or if you're the one running the company. You know, Cenk Uygur from TYT, perfect example. Far leftist, progressive Cenk Uygur, union this, union that, always unionize, protect union workers. Well, when his own staff attempted to create a union, he stopped them almost immediately. The Young Turks progressive founder urged his staff not to unionize. It's rules for thee, but not for me. It's more bureaucracy, more messy, unnecessary nonsense, more regulation, and more downstream damage for the little guy. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.